Welcome to the Animal Agenda on KPFK. My name is Tom Kiesche, and this week I'm doing something a little different. I'm having a conversation with three different people who I know through volunteering with dogs.
My name is Amber Rood.
Karen Cusolito.
Hi, my name is Brian Gilles. I'm a volunteer for LA City at West Valley in Chatsworth.
I volunteer at North Central Los Angeles Animal Shelter.
At Long Beach Animal Care Services, also known as LBACS, and that is in Long Beach, California.
Do you have any pets?
I do. I have a lab mix that I got from North Central Los Angeles Shelter 10 years ago. And then I inherited a cockapoo when my parents passed away.
I have two pets. I have two dogs, Smokey and Minnie. Both are rescues, and both were foster fails.
I've had a dog for 8 years that I got at East Valley, and I'm also currently fostering a dog for a rescue.
A foster fail is when you take in a dog to foster, so your intention is to just have it at your home until it gets adopted, and then you fall in love with that dog, as we do, and then you decide to keep the dog.
What do you do for work, or what do you do outside the shelter?
So I am a freelance social media content creator.
I teach high school English at Hollywood High School. I've been there 26 years, but I will be retiring soon.
I worked for AMC Theaters for 34 years, and I am currently not working, just working at the shelter.
What kind of things do you do at the shelter?
What don't I do there?
I walk dogs, not all the dogs at the shelter, but a good portion of them. We have something like 270 dogs. I know maybe a third of them. I also do adoption counseling when people come in looking for a dog. I take them to meet the dog and talk to them and see if the dog will fit their lifestyle.
I spend most of my time walking the dogs, spending time with them, getting them out of their kennels, bringing them to the play yard, giving them love and attention, and trying to help them with some of their behavioral issues, just showing them, that there's hope. But I also find myself sometimes cleaning out kennels, cleaning poo, doing the thing we all have to do. And then I do spend a lot of time, I kind of take my job into the shelter, but I spend a lot of time taking videos of the dogs and going home and posting about them and trying to help them to get seen.
I do adoption counseling, I clean kennels, I do extra feedings, I assist the public in whatever needs they might have. I give enrichments to animals. I also care for some different animals like turtles and pigs.
I also make reels on social media to help get the dogs rescued. I pass along other people's reels. So I really got sucked in, but I enjoy it. Sometimes I do what they call mobile pet adoptions, where they take the dogs out into the community and try to get them adopted.
I do mentoring with new volunteers. I handle large, challenging dogs, and actually dogs of all kinds.
About how many hours a month do you think you volunteer?
I volunteer about 40 hours a month.
Oh, I'd say about 30.
Approximately 140 hours a month.
The hours I spend editing videos, I couldn't even tell you. It's a lot.
Tell me about some of the dogs that you like to work with at the shelter.
It's funny, everyone at the shelter kind of has their favorites. There's people who like the pit bulls, there's people who like the huskies, there's people who like the German shepherds. I tend to lean toward German shepherds. I just think they're classic, beautiful, loyal type of dogs. They don't do well in the shelter. They have a hard time because they're so sensitive and so intelligent.
I like to work with animals that are having a hard time at the shelter and help them come out of their shell and be able to become more adoptable.
I will say I think we all kind of get our favorite dogs at the shelter. You can't really help it. You just sort of bond with some of them. Some of them are They just want to go out and they're kind of aloof and they're using you, for lack of a better term. You're someone to get them out and throw the ball. But some of them just want to snuggle you, and when they're affectionate, I mean, you can't help but just sort of choose them as your favorite.
My favorite breed of dog to work with is anything in the pit bull family.
How long have you been volunteering?
So I actually started volunteering just over a year ago. So I'm a pretty new person to this whole world.
It'll be 2 years this summer.
I've been volunteering at the shelter for 8 years.
How much does volunteering with animals pay?
Volunteering with animals is really a low-paid gig.
Nothing monetarily, although it is satisfying.
It's pretty much zero. Actually, it costs me money. In fact, I spend a lot of money on buying treats and leashes, and it costs me money. Worth every penny.
Doesn't pay anything.
How did you come to volunteering?
When I was looking for a dog at East Valley, a volunteer approached us and suggested a dog, a pit bull, which we never would have considered before. And we ended up taking her home, and she's been life-changing. And through that, I decided to volunteer.
So I got into volunteering because, well, a couple of reasons, actually. About 5 years ago, a friend of my husband's asked us if we would foster a dog. And I actually had no idea what that meant. I knew nothing about fostering. I knew nothing about homeless animals, shelters. I just didn't know. So we said, sure, why not? That was our first dog that we foster failed with. But it opened my eyes to this whole new world of homeless animals and rescues and shelters. And I realized that dogs need us. So that was kind of the start.
I read a story in the Los Angeles Times about how dogs were not being walked for weeks at a time at the local shelters. And I thought, I'm a teacher, I'm on summer vacation, I can walk dogs, can't be that hard. I've had dogs all my life. I have the time, so I applied. And it took a little bit of time to get my application approved. And I got impatient at one point and went down to the shelter and was going to find out what was going on. And I ran into, guess who, in the parking lot. Yes, I saw you in the parking lot, and I recognized you from your Instagram page.
Then, a few years later, we were visiting my brother up in NorCal, and it was the holidays. And we saw that shelters were accepting or needing donations. Another thing that was kind of foreign to me, I don't know how I didn't know this, but I didn't realize that shelters might need dog food or dog toys or blankets. So in the holiday spirit, we got some dog food and went over there, and we decided to go inside. And it was my first time ever in a shelter. All three of us, my husband, my brother, and I went in and pretty much cried. It was very shocking. It was a small humane society. They had 30 dogs, so it wasn't anything crazy. But it was really moving, and it was really emotional. And then on the way out, there was a little sign that said, looking for volunteers. So my brother signed up and started walking dogs. And then I went home and I was like, I'm going to sign up too.
Why do you keep volunteering?
I keep volunteering because I'm totally hooked on it. I know how important it is. I know how much I'm needed. I know how much of a difference I can make, even if it's a small difference, kind of like the story that you told me about the starfish. I know I'm needed. Also, it feels good. It's selfishly, it's something that makes me feel like I'm doing something good for the world.
Because there's so much need. I mean, at first I thought like, oh, well, I'll just go walk a few dogs. But once you open your eyes to something, you can't close them. You know, it's so obvious that there's so much need. There's so many dogs, and it's more than just walking. They need, attention. They need their kennels cleaned.
I couldn't not be there for them.
You're listening to The Animal Agenda on KPFK. My name is Tom Kiesche, and I'm talking with guests Amber Rood, Karen Cusolito and Brian Gilles, volunteers that work mainly with dogs at 3 different municipal shelters. What are some things that you've learned while volunteering at an animal shelter?
The first thing, and I kind of already knew this, but dogs are way better than people. Kidding. It is true though.
Don't be so sure of yourself. When I started, I thought it was going to be easy because it was just walking dogs. What's so hard about that?
I've learned how horrible people can be and irresponsible and uncaring with their animals.
How much of a problem there is. I mean, I just didn't know. And homeless animals, it's a crisis. It's an epidemic. It's insane to me how many animals are being abandoned every day. And I didn't know. So I just didn't realize how much need there is for help. I didn't realize the problem. And once you see the problem, you can't look away. You can't unsee it. You can't. Yeah, it's in there. It's a big problem.
I've also learned that there are good people out there that do care.
Oh, that everyone has something to give. It just amazes me, all the different volunteers. Some have different skills. They all have these great skill sets where like somebody's really good at making social media reels. Someone's really good at dealing with rescues. Someone's good at, matching up a dog with a potential adopter.
Volunteering has taught me that it's okay to be, not that it's okay. I need to be less selfish. I think as humans, we get so wrapped up in our world and our lives, and there's so much going on, and we tend to be like me. What am I doing? What do I need? And volunteering, you kind of have to step aside, away from your life, and you have to just go in and be there for someone or something else. It's a good thing to do.
I've learned that a lot of the negative things you see with dogs, say in their kennel, is just fear. And a lot of that can be fixed with just some kindness and care.
I guess maybe just to be more thoughtful and not just react quickly. I tend to make decisions quickly. Oh, that's funny because that's something you told me once. There was a dog that I really, really liked. I really liked Juliet, and I was never able to walk her because she was above my pay grade. And I asked you, why is Juliet considered an advanced dog? And you said, because she makes decisions quickly. Learned that I need to slow down and consider everything.
What's one of your favorite things about volunteering?
Just interacting with the dogs. You get to know them, and they're all so cool, and they're all so fun. And when you go to their kennel and you take them out, I mean, some of these dogs sit there for 24 hours a day. And when you give them a little break, they are so grateful. They are so happy. It just warms your heart. It's a really cool feeling. You know the feeling. It's such a great feeling. You're giving them something so special. Also, dogs are fun. I love dogs. I've become so fond of dogs through doing this. And it's really cool when a dog you love gets adopted.
It can be really kind of depressing when you get out of the car and you just hear all the noise and the dog barking and everything. And sometimes you think like, oh my gosh, am I really making any difference? But then as soon as you get the dog out of the kennel and into the yard, they're so happy. And they don't know how long it's been since they've been in the yard. They're just happy to be in the yard. And so that makes it worthwhile. That's really fun.
I enjoy working with dogs that are scared or fearful in their kennels and helping them improve and become more comfortable and get adopted and seeing them get to live their lives as they should.
Hardest thing about volunteering with dogs?
When they get put on the red list to be euthanized, and then everybody has to scramble to try to find a rescue or an adopter, and it often comes down to the very last minute, and they don't all make it.
Seeing the animals come in uncared for, or senior animals dumped, or dogs being put on a list where they will be euthanized if they're not saved.
Just seeing them in, as I call it, doggy jail. I mean, they're just in these kennels. It's a pretty bad way of life. It's not fun for them. It's really heart-wrenching. And so to see the dogs that you start to get to know and love in that kennel, it's brutal. But also, I think this one's really hard, but when you see a dog not make it out of the shelter, it's really, really sad.
Do you have any tips for someone coming to a shelter for the first time to look for an animal?
Should talk to volunteers and get recommendations. Don't go by what the dog looks like in its kennel. Might be a really cute dog, but it might not fit your lifestyle. There might be other dogs who don't have great kennel presence. They may be barking or jumping, but they could still be really good dogs.
Think about the breed that you are hoping to get. Look at, Google it, find out more information about each breed because they're all very different. So just kind of educate yourself a little bit. And then also, oh my gosh, please check with your landlord first. Please check with your family members. Make sure that everyone's on board. We have people adopt a dog and 2 hours later come back and say, oh, my landlord doesn't allow pit bulls. It's like, why didn't you ask your landlord? You could have saved everyone and the dog a lot of stress. And then if everything is right, you know, and you adopt a dog, we're going to give you a lot of advice about when you go home, what you need to do. We're going to tell you about the 3-3-3 rule. We're going to tell you that you need to be patient with this dog. And, you know, please listen to us. We're not just saying it for fun. We've seen a lot of things happen and it's not easy. Being a dog owner is not easy. Make sure that you're ready for that commitment. Make sure that your lifestyle fits having a dog. I mean, they are a lot. They're a lot.
Talk to the volunteers, ask the volunteers questions. The volunteers know the animals. They've worked with the animals. They will help you find the animal that you're looking for.
You're listening to The Animal Agenda on KPFK. My name's Tom Kiesche, and I'm talking with guests Amber Rood, Karen Cusolito, and Brian Gilles. 3 volunteers at 3 different municipal shelters that all work with dogs. Any tips for people considering volunteering?
Do it. Like, period. Just do it. What are you going to lose, right? Like, I can't tell you how many people, and I'm sure you hear this too, Tom, like, I can't set foot in a shelter. I'll cry. It's too upsetting. I can't do it. Yeah, it is sad. And for the first few weeks, it's really emotional. And I did cry a lot and I still cry sometimes. But me crying once in a while to be able to make a difference to a dog, to get a dog out of a kennel who might be in that kennel for 24 hours a day, that's worth any tear for me, right? Like they're way more sad than I am. Also, it gets easier. I mean, the longer you're there, the less traumatic it is. You kind of adapt, you adjust. You aren't as shocked by all of it, the noise, everything kind of, you adapt, you get used to it. So it does become easier.
Don't get discouraged when things don't come as easily as you expect. Search out mentors. There'll always be someone that you can find who will help you and give you advice, but you have to ask.
Be prepared for things that will upset you every day.
Dogs can be unpredictable, so just always be on guard. Like just be kind of, I mean, we learn about their body language, and you really have to listen to that. You have to know that just because this dog was great yesterday, they may have had a rough night or something. So just be smart when you're handling the dogs.
Don't get in over your head.
And then as far as my body, I actually wear some sort of protective things on my wrists because they scratch you sometimes by accident or they're trying to grab the leash. They're excited and, you can get a little nick. And if a dog nicks you, it can go on their record as a bite. So it's pretty awful for the dog. So
it's not all about taking dogs out. It's about all the other things also to help enrich their lives while they're at the shelter.
Always make sure that, you have permission to take out the dog, and the dog doesn't have a behavior mark or a medical mark.
Listen to people that have been there.
I didn't wear gloves to begin with, but I do now. I've never been bitten, but it just helps to protect against, like scrapes and bruises.
Do you have a favorite success story that you would like to share?
Yeah. So when I first started volunteering, like maybe the third weekend or something, there was this little Dalmatian named River. That's what we named her when she came in. She was tied up at the park across from the shelter in the back gate, like tied up with a leash, whatever. People do these things. It's awful. So she was found and brought into the shelter, and she was so scared. She was one of those dogs that just wasn't doing well, crying nonstop. And so my husband and dogs were out of town. We live in a tiny 1-bedroom, and so we can't foster or take any dogs here. It's just too hard. We have 2 dogs. So they're out of town, and I was like, ooh, I could bring the dog home for the night, give it a shelter break. So I started taking River home every night. I'd go to the shelter in the day, walk dogs, bring her with me, put her in right by the rehoming. She could get seen, hopefully adopted, but she wasn't getting adopted. And I kept taking her home at night for like a week or something. And then they were coming back. And so I could not bear to bring her back to the shelter. Like, she was just so upset. And so a friend took her, and in a few days we heard from the Asher House, which I'm sure you're familiar with, that he was interested in her. He had seen, I think, my video. I had posted a bunch of videos about her. He had seen that and was really interested in her story. And so he flew down and rented a car and picked up River, who is now named Rain, and brought her back up to the sanctuary. But just meeting him and getting to talk to him, and he's really an inspiration for me. And one day I want to run a rescue ranch in Vermont, where I'm from. That's my dream. So it was cool because I already knew and loved him, or I was a fan of his and what he was doing. And so because of the shelter and River, I was able to meet somebody like that. It was really neat.
Buddy, okay. We had a senior 10-year-old pit bull at the shelter who was there for a year. He was a leash biter, which we worked on and corrected that behavior. He was finally adopted by a nice couple who adored him. They stayed in touch with me. They had him for a year, and then he got cancer and unfortunately didn't live much longer. They have since adopted 2 more pit bulls from our shelter and are doing fantastic.
Yeah, there was a dog that was red listed that I really liked. His name was Zuko, and we could not figure out what kind of dog he was. He was a big, what we call floofer. He was a big fluffy dog, and he loved to play in the pool, and he loved to chase balls, and he loved to, roll around on his back. He was a great dog. He got red listed for, I don't even remember what reason, some BS reason. And it was his last day, and I was in the yard with him, giving him what I thought would be his last walk. And someone came in, said, I want to see the dog. And he was a Hollywood producer who the staff had discouraged from even seeing the dog, but being a Hollywood producer, he didn't take no for an answer. He insisted on seeing the dog. He insisted on adopting the dog, despite their claims that the dog was dangerous. He adopted the dog. He rehomed it with a friend, and now the dog is living on a ranch in Atlanta. And we found out he was a Norwegian elk hound. We thought he was a chow or some rare Japanese breed. And turns out he's a Norwegian elk hound.
Besides volunteering, how can the public help?
People can foster. Normally you foster through a rescue. You can foster through the shelter, but it's kind of time-consuming and bureaucratic.
If you have a friend or a family member or a neighbor who's thinking about getting a dog, suggest adopting. I mean, I think people just don't know. Like I said, I keep saying this, I didn't know. And there's a lot of people who just assume you have to go to a breeder to get a puppy. Of course, that's what you do. So spread the awareness, let people know about adopting, share a story. If you see a story of a dog in need, just share it. It takes 5 seconds.
By helping network dogs, especially dogs that are in trouble, they could help foster or adopt or find people to foster or adopt. We accept donations, anything from blankets to toys. If the shelter doesn't use them, future adopters will.
Bob Barker said it, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, spay and neuter your pets, and it's still true today.
Yeah, just get involved.
How can people find more about what you do and the dogs you post?
It's hard to say it because it's at, and then it's at, and then at girl. I always have the hardest time explaining that.
KMCUSOLITO at Instagram.
BG Duke at Instagram.
Yeah, you can share some of my videos. I'll be forever grateful.
You've been listening to The Animal Agenda on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles or streaming online. My guests have been volunteers Amber Rood, Karen Cusolito, and Brian Gilles. Special thanks to producer Marlena Bond and Melody King. You can find out more about me, Tom Kiesche, through my Linktree if you want. Please support listener-sponsored KPFK by donating online at kpfk.org or by calling 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK.